Yeah, so this is going to be about free will. So I made a few videos already about the topic of free will. And in a nutshell, what I'm arguing is that uh, the question of whether free will exists or not, we're trying to find evidence for free will in the natural world, while according to the theory, and not just according to the theory, if we consider what free will is, which is free from determinism, you will not find evidence for it in the deterministic world, by definition. If the world is deterministic, then you won't find it. If the world, and let me translate that, if the world is rational, then you won't find it, because deterministic is rational and consistent. And the theory argues, yeah, if you're not going to find it there, because that's not where free will operates. Free will operates between different versions of reality, different timelines. It's the thing that it's something that is expressing the transition between universes, between incoherent universes in some way or another. That's what it does. And whenever you make a choice, yes, you're going to find all the evidence in the brain to show that cohere with that choice, but that's not because that evidence existed prior. It's because you migrate to a reality where that evidence should be there. And the reason it should be there is because when experience interrogates reality, the only thing it understands is the things that it understands. The only movements that it can follow are the ones that it can understand. And it can only understand rational, consistent movements. So when you interrogate reality, you find the evidence that would cohere with what you chose, because that's the only evidence you can ever comprehend, and the only reality you will ever comprehend, and therefore the only reality you will ever be in. But then I took a step back and realized this whole question is wrong. Everything about I've been led to try to answer this question, but I missed a big portion of the solution by making that argumentative move. I tried to prove that free will exists. Like the question is whether free will exists, and I'm trying to prove whether free will exists. So I'm trying to find evidence where the will was free, and there was evidence for that, the fact that it was free, so I'm looking for cases where where the will changed reality, and nothing else could have changed reality. But do you see what's missing here? What about all the cases that the will existed, but it didn't change reality? I'm assuming that doesn't exist. That doesn't matter. But of course it does. It matters. Like, how many times you wanted something and it didn't happen? Like, let's say you're in a gym, you're on you're lifting let's say you're doing bench presses with a barbell, and you're pushing it 9 times, and the 10th time you just can't. Your body won't let you. So you have the will, you have the experience of wanting, but it doesn't happen. So, like, the assumption is that this experience of the will is just experience coming along for the ride. Like, you want the body that made the choice, and you just get this illusion of having made that choice. But what about the case when you have the illusion but it didn't happen? What about the case where you're trying to remember something and you can't remember? What about the cases when you want to be happy and you can't be happy? So the question, the way we phrase the question is like we try to find only the happy path, the path where we want something, and the will managed to change reality outside the laws of nature, and we got what we wanted. But that's not proof whether free will exists. Free will can exist and not materialize, not actualize, not be capable of actualizing, and it's still free will, and you still need to explain it. And all these explanations we have currently is for the things, like all these attempts to explain free will is like as if every action being taken is desired. There was a will for it, but of course that's not the case. So so then the question, you have to actually translate it. You're trying to prove that not whether free will exists. You're trying to prove whether free will can change. Yeah, can change the physical or wakeful reality you share with everyone in a way that is coherent with the will, or something like that, which is a very specific question. And the actual model is actually, when you're trying to actually explain the relationship between the will, the experience of the will, which is undeniable, and the actions actually being taken, you have to also consider the other cases. Now, but then you have to consider, like, okay, so what the answer here is. And so how can it be that, so let's say there are some times where the things I want end up happening, and then I can say, okay, this is my will change reality, and I'm happy because I found evidence for free will, as if, and then I'll see that evidence isn't there, there's like brain activation and blah blah. But then there are the cases that I don't get what I want, and I never bother to explain, because it's like proving negative. Let's say you're standing still and you felt like you wanted to move, but you didn't. So what are you trying to prove? You had the will, and it was free, and it wanted to move to the side, but you didn't. So you have nothing to prove. No one caught you. But the will was still free, and it still but still, what happens here? Like, you wanted, and why didn't it happen? What model explains that? So for that, you actually need to go to this thing I mentioned, which is power brains. The idea that this avatar that you control in the wakeful shared reality, physical reality you share with everyone else, what I call the wakeful union. There's one avatar, and there's a village of experiential agents which are similar to you but different in intention, different in will, all of which are free, but not all of them have the dominance, what I call experiential dominance. So the question of free will becomes not a question of whether there is free will or not. The question is, whether an experiential agent, which experiential agent gets to make the decision, what will be the decided behavior in the commons, in the power brain, what I call between the power peers. So that's a different question, and sometimes one experiential agent will win, and her will dominate, and other times they will be docile, and it's a balance of power between different experiential agents, and it's an interesting topic to contemplate on. But it's so far from the original question whether free will exists. And yeah, so it seems like, so in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say here is that the reason the question of free will, I realize that the reason the question of free will is so tough is because it's the wrong. The problem is in the question. The question is assuming, like, bringing in a lot of assumptions about what would be proof of free will, and ignores all the other cases that need to be explained. And when you consider them, you get to a different picture, where the question whether free will exists in the traditional sense, whether there's proof that you wanted to do something and that has overridden the laws of nature, becomes like almost provincial.